Every turn I take, every trail I track, every path I make, every road leads back to the place I know where I cannot go, where I long to be. See the line where the sky meets the sea, it calls me, and no one knows how far it goes.
Welcome to Rage Quit Wire. This isn't a Disney Channel, I swear. But
You're going to get us
I'm
taken
just
off
saying,
the air.
you're welcome. Hey, listen,
You're welcome.
Jamie Perkins had everybody at Steamforge singing Moana songs. Hey, go get it. So, yeah, we're here. I got myself, Pete, with Chris. Got John up in the mountains, and we got a special guest that feels like nerding out with us for the night. We got old Mike Klein on the podcast. How you doing, Mike?
Good. What's up?
You made it back home. I know. He's like, eh. It's like they strong-armed me onto the podcast.
Against his will.
It was a pity join after this weekend.
That's
past
fair.
weekend.
That's fair. I mean, we finally got to play, and you definitely, man, we're going to talk about it later, but Rage kicked my ass.
Well, all I know is that in this second Civil War, the North got turned back. So that's what I heard.
They went back to DC, went up 95 or whatever you took, whatever route you took back up there, Mike.
I went through on the way back. I went through literally every state. Let's say I went through North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York.
Yeah. So, Mike, honestly, you guys, this was kind of like a practice for you guys doing the STC. This was your practice for WTC, and my one hope with you guys kind of warming up for that is man, I hope we give them some good games. I hope they get some good practice out of this. And I mean, what did you think you guys as a team got out of the STC when you guys finished the day up?
It was really, really good games. Lots of skilled people. I mean, it was Jared's first in-person game since SteamCon US. So I think that was really good for him. And as we learned, he wasn't the only one, but clock is definitely something he needs to practice a little bit more, because Vassal games don't give you good practice for that. But we felt pretty good about the team process. I think I might have showed you guys. I showed some people. I showed Lon for sure, but I took his list of rosters and we did a little bit of pre-work for whether we thought it was good matchup, bad matchup, what we wanted to see. And actually, really, we got everything, all the matchups we wanted the whole time. So, it was good. It was good. It was a good dry run. I think we figured out we want to maybe switch up one or two of the teams that people were playing, but overall, it was fun. Lots of good games.
Yeah, I was going to say, go ahead, John.
You showed me. You all wanted to play against me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we all had John as an advantage matchup.
Yeah, I mean, pre-Falcon Hunters,
yes,
it's just they. I don't think they can do enough damage against the teams you guys were playing to consistently win against them at kind of those top end tables.
Agreed.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah, but it was fun. You got to play into my Brewers. Did you end up getting the mirror match at any point in the day, Mike?
No, I did not get any Union on Union. Thank God.
I was going to say, I
think everybody avoided it.
I was expecting to get Brewers mirror matchups, and I actually didn't get any of those throughout the day, which is surprising because those were the two most brought guilds of the day, right? That was fun. I mean, I had a blast. Some people got a little more, loaded than others, but it was a good time. I felt good after playing in that tournament. I definitely see how you utilize your Union 6, and we'll talk about that a little more once we get into it, but it was really nice to see how smoothly you ran that team. And that, I think that goes with all the practice you've been getting with them. You've gotten really clean with them.
Why, thank you.
So with that being said, though, we're going to go through some quick news stuff that popped up. And I think the one that a lot of people are excited about is the Cooks Guild coming out.
So excited.
Yeah, we know Chris is excited.
My dreams are coming true.
And the models look pretty sweet. Some people were complaining about, I think Spice, they said she looked a little weird with her legs looked too elongated or something. I don't know. I didn't really, whatever.
I like long legs.
I kind of think
easy now. But
did you guys hear that they were going to kind of model all the cooks based on Boiler?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have the same traits and same skills that Boiler has, apparently.
That'd be a broken team.
That would be such a
Yeah, but it's going to be broken the wrong way.
So,
No.
let me ask you guys this, because they didn't give us a lot of information. The only thing they gave us was that there's going to be a -1 defense mechanic that the whole guild has. And then they said they're even glassier than the
No.
butchers.
They just said they're more glass cannon, so I'm hoping they're more cannon than the butchers, not more glass.
I think they're going to be like, Mr. Glass off of Invincible.
Okay, well,
where you tap
I
them
hope
and
that
they
they're
shatter.
more cannon too.
But
I
I'm
mean,
like, how can you get more?
-1 defense is pretty, having hooked is on your entire team. It's pretty good.
Yeah, guild wide hook.
Yep.
Now, did they say, or is that just going to be something where if they're engaging you, you're just automatically -1? Is that probably how that's going to work?
Yeah, basically if you attack them, it's -1.
I think it's probably when you make an attack, yeah.
Well, I hope you high defense teams, hide your kids and hide your wife, because that's...
Yeah, that's going to suck.
Yeah, for
They're
sure.
going to rat for days. So, okay, some quick things about this guild. I think it's pretty funny that they have Wellington, which they're basing on Gordon Ramsay.
Is it Beat Wellington?
Beat Wellington instead of beef? Okay, so we got to tell that story now.
You can. That's your story.
So, one of our buddies here, his name's Evan. He used to be like a press ganger for War Machine. He's playing Legion now. We might have him on the podcast sometime. But we went to his house for Thanksgiving dinner. So he decided that he was going to make Wellington, and that's all he told us. And then we get this message that it was Beat Wellington, and we thought we read it wrong. We were just like, oh, beef, right? But no. So he literally cooked a Wellington with beets in the center of it. and we show up and we're just
Saddened?
depressed. It was like somebody burned our presents right before Christmas Day. And so fortunately we did bring a lot more food, and I made a pretty awesome pork dish that night. Anyway, so that's the Beat Wellington story. But I love the fact that it's a captain that kind of has that Gordon Ramsay theme. A lot of people have been having some fun with this online, hoping that this model has character traits and character plays that are named after some of the famous phrases of Gordon Ramsay, like "it's raw" or
You're an
"idiot
idiot sandwich."
yeah, all that kind of stuff. I think that would be pretty funny. We got Roast, who looks like a big fat beater.
Dude, that's like my favorite model out of that.
Yeah, he
Oh,
looks
I
pretty
love
cool.
it. By far, with the chicken necklace.
Dude, he's like, instead of 2 chains, it's like 2 chickens.
And I love that he's just got those.
Now,
big
here's the
blades and
cool
things.
thing that I like, and some people don't like this, but I do, and you guys can talk about it here after, but I like how they take the not as much used models
Yes.
and they're making them useful in these minor guilds. Like here you see Tenderizer, which I love that Tenderizer model in that launch pack. And then I'm guessing that's Shank also there.
Yeah.
It's Shank.
And hopefully they're going to get some cool mix up with the guild that they get.
I already
buddy up with.
like Shank, and so if this guild is going to make Shank better, I'm going to be thrilled with that.
Yeah.
And then the last model that we saw was Spice, and then after all of this was released, people posted on a Cook's Guild Facebook page, and the other models were pictured and released, so we can talk a little bit about those models as well, if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go too much into them because, I mean, we don't know their names and we don't know any
Well, we know
abilities,
one of them.
but they look cool. What, the Weasel?
No, we know so there's a girl that has like a frying pan.
Oh,
and her
yeah.
name is Sugar. So Sugar and Spice.
And everything nice?
And everything nice.
Yikes.
And Sugar is kind of the antithesis of Spice. So Spice is kind of like lean and leggy, and Sugar is
A little more portly.
a little bit more portly. Yep. And then we have a model here that looks like a pastry chef of some sort. We've got something that looks like a weasel model as a mascot.
So here's the thing, though. I think that when these minor guilds are coming out, a lot of people are excited about it. And because it's new models, it's new stuff. Honestly, I hate the Butchers just because Chris plays them all the time and they're kind of not my bag. So this guild, even though they look really cool, I'm like, I'm passing.
Okay, well, good, because I'm going to be playing them for sure.
I
So
thought you were playing Falconers.
I'll be playing them as well.
Are you backing out like Schlegel?
No, I'm not backing out. I'm still going to buy all those Falconers.
I mean,
I'm still getting
Chris
a
Schlegel
limited edition
was-
Minerva.
And Mike can attest to this. Schlegel was all in Ratcatchers 2018, and then he saw Navigators.
Then he played Ratcatchers, but then he saw Navigators.
Yeah, I
He
mean,
was doing well with rats, though.
we all
He
own
was.
multiple guilds.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. I think, I'm guilty of it. I have the rainbow badge on Longshanks. I play tons of
You do have
different
the
guilds.
rainbow badge.
You had a rainbow badge before.
I always did in my heart. So going into that, though, they started leaking some more season 4 kind of.
Well, before we leave this topic,
What?
no,
What now?
well,
What
you're
now?
the painter of the group.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about this. People have talked about how they're going to paint these, and
Okay.
chefs typically have those checkered black and white.
Terrible
pants.
idea. If you're not
Right.
a good painter, that's a terrible
Okay,
idea.
but I'm sure a lot of people are going to try and go for that. So what would you recommend? What
Don't
would
do
you
it.
recommend instead? Do you have any tips for painting that if somebody does want to undertake it?
If you're gonna do chef stuff and you're not a good painter, do blood stains and stuff because that's way easier to do.
Or gravy stains?
If anybody has played 40K before, I tried to do a checkered pattern on Harlequins because that's their typical pattern, and it was the most miserable paint job I've ever done. And I spent a lot of time on it, and it still didn't look good. It's tough to do a good checker theme.
Would you do maybe like pinstripes?
I think.
Like a black and white pinstripe?
If you want
That's
to be in
hard, too.
prison, yeah.
No, because those are horizontal stripes, dumbass.
I don't know. I would say don't do it. I just say put some blood stains on there, and some other things. And
Okay.
I kind of like the idea of them just being a solid dark red.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be fine too. I mean, checker patterns are so
Not
tough to
painted.
do. So tough to do.
Okay, so tips
But-
for those people that are listening:
Just don't do it.
avoid those checker
Unless
patterns
you're-
unless you're unreal.
Not unreal. It's.
And
I'd say if you can do above tabletop quality, go for it because you could probably figure it out. Like I said, I'm a tabletop quality guy, speed paint guy, and it's tough to do. So, but getting back into season 4, and this affects minor guilds, I think, more than anything else, is they're upping the roster for tournaments from 10 to 12. And some people are in love with this, but I think if you're a big fan of minor guilds, you're like, well, this sucks because now you can bring more counters to my guild, and yeah, it sucks.
I'm excited that I don't feel bad to do my double captain, double mascot as much anymore.
Yeah. So you can bring that corner case model that you wouldn't bring most of the time because you got spots for it now.
Who doesn't
No,
bring
I-
both captains?
Ugh.
Uh,
I think
I mean-
so. Mike had single captain, single mascot.
Yeah, I know. This effing guy that we invited on the podcast does it. So, but generally speaking, I think most people do bring both captains with most guilds, just so that they do have some counter playability in certain circumstances. But yes, it'll definitely make that double captain, double mascot list very viable. And I think in many ways now the minor guilds are having to earn their bonuses by not being able to have that breadth of roster.
Well, and then some people also say this might leave room for them to add players to the minor guild later. Like maybe once they get these minor guilds released, a couple years down the road, they start supplementing a player or two in there. Maybe they do anytime that they want to, actually.
Yeah, the minors make the rise to the majors, and the second box of 6 comes out or something. Then you have 12 to choose from, or 14 to choose from.
that sounds exactly like what they're going to do 3 years down the road.
That seems like a good money making scheme.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that that's something that we're looking at in the future, whether or not they're going to adjust those minor guilds in size or how they're going to use all of that going forward. So we'll see.
The season 4 thing, that was the last one. The other thing, the first thing on there is they're going to get rid of gaining influence. So models can no longer go over their max influence. Like Grace, who's a 2/3, gets her +2 influence, so she can get 5 influence, isn't it? So that'll.
And I think that this is a pretty nice change, just from the standpoint that it is something that I think, especially for newer players or very casual players, it was something that led to a lot of confusion is, well, what's the difference between gain or allocate? And a lot of people don't want to have to worry about all of that. So they're just saying, okay, you are going to, everything will be allocate. There will be no more gaining. How do you think this affects things? Do you have any thoughts on this, Mike?
It depends on how they handle Honor and how they handle Hammer. They talked a little bit about Hammer, but they didn't give all the details yet. But yeah, as long as specifically Honor is probably the biggest one, because most of the other people you can just make things allocate, and then you just have to spend your influence before you pop whatever the ability is. Like Grace can just, well, her case, she actually probably needs hers beforehand. But a lot of model, like Sakana has an allocate ability, but you could just spend an influence before you allocate.
Yeah.
So depending on how they do it, but yeah, it cleans it up. So as long as they don't mess it up, it should be fine.
Yeah, and I think that when you talk about just one guild having to kind of make an adjustment there, that's pretty easy to adapt to. So I don't imagine that'll be much of a problem. The couple other things, they decided to change the way that terrain works, so you no longer can stop and climb onto obstructions. You have to either be all the way over or all the way up, or not. And I think that, again, this is an adjustment that kind of makes things a little bit easier.
Just tell you how much I love that. Theron can find a big old piece of terrain and just walk around it hiding.
Well, this is another indirect vet decimate buff. You can't hide models on what's it called, obstructions, and not let her push you. So
so that'll be a change for those models that are pushing. I also think it really amps up those models that have things like Where'd They Go, where they can just jump right over obstructions of most sizes. So that'll be a nice buff to models that have Where'd They Go, and some of them will make your life hell for it. The last one that they talked about is the difference between character traits and character plays. Basically, they said that this is a little bit confusing for people about what it means and how influence gets spent. So, in a nutshell, it's very simple. The character traits are always going to be on the back of the card. They're going to be free. And the character plays are going to be something that is paid for. You're going to have to spend influence for it, and they're adjusting influence pools accordingly.
I just need to see what they're going to do with it. I know they say something in here like that gets talking about furnaces one at a time, lads, character play, and all that. But just I want to see how they're going to adjust iron. I don't have much of an opinion until I see how it's done.
What about for you, Mike?
I'm more or less the same. It's the other half of the depends on how they do it. Like if Hammer has to pay one and then still steal an influence from somebody else, then it's garbage ability. But if I have confidence in them to figure out something that's balanced. So it's good.
Hammer's the one that I think is the biggest deal with this. I think that this is the one where they're kind of balancing this change against Hammer specifically.
I'm pretty sure he was the first model to have zero cost character plays. I could be wrong.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be right. Maybe some of the newer minor guilds, they're using that element a little bit more often. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think that in his case, you might not see those 6-point activations as often anymore. This could be a bit of a nerf to him in that way, just because he doesn't have as much access to influence to use. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, as I look at these changes, it looks like the ones that they're going to have to be the most careful with are the Masons as far as how it gets applied. Do you guys agree with that, or what are your thoughts in general about this package of Season 4 rules and how it affects the game as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I agree with Mike. I think they're going to do it right, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, sounds like they're trying to clean stuff up, which is good. And not major changes, just like I predicted. I mean, there are sizable changes, but not like people were going all over the place and how they were going to fundamentally change the game. I don't think any of these changes that they've talked about so far are that out there.
Don't fear change, people. It's not always bad.
Let's say you're the fucker that was,
Fear the
worried about the change there, John.
Well, it's because I don't know anything else, man. I'm ignorant to any other season of Guild Ball.
That's fair.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts, Pete, on any of these Season 4 changes in general?
I know a lot of Hammer players are scared right now.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
So I've been hearing a lot about that, and everything else has been pretty much just cleaning up the game, making sure it's more consistent. The terrain thing was a big one where some people are mad they can't sit themselves on their box now, but whatever.
Yeah.
One cool thing about that is we could see more 3D terrain.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think about that, but that's a really nice addition.
For example, Chad, our buddy Chad, loves his historical gaming and has a lot of 3D terrain stuff. And he loves that aspect, the aesthetic of the 3D terrain. But I'm kind of like, well, I want to get on that shit. So let's not play with that. Let's play with this 2D terrain. Yeah. And I'm fine playing with 3D terrain.
Yeah, I think that's a really solid point. And like I'm saying, everything I'm seeing as far as their changes are just good to see. I'm glad they're going more the route of making, simple changes to clean it up and changing rules to, see more of what they want in the game. So, they want more passing, they want more goal scoring. So I think they're making more rules to help that out, but they're not, destroying the other parts of the game. So that's just good for me to see. So unless you guys have something else, we can go ahead and look at Not Moana.
I want to hear Mr. Klein's thoughts on this. Normally, we're the first ones to kind of issue some thoughts, and then you pick apart our thoughts on this podcast. So you get to go first this time.
So I saw her and was super excited. I thought she was a really cool model overall, and it took me a significantly long time to notice that she had the fish guild symbol at the bottom of her card. So yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know if you guys want to go over the card in general or not, but I'll just say Angel. Yeah. She's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, John and I were talking about that, and John, you said this might be one of the best turn one goals of the game now.
Oh, you can't stop it.
Yeah, especially with her 2-inch melee and the tackle double dodge. She's going to be really, really difficult to deal with.
Well, yeah, plus, I mean, it's just you get some momentum, and Fathom kicks the ball to Angel and dodges 4 inches, and now Angel has her super shot of just crazy amount of distance and dice going into it.
I mean, again, this is a big buff to Shark for me because he doesn't have to do everything.
Yeah, and what's up with these? I mean, this is now the second card we've seen, and they have basically another Where'd You Go for pretty much free. I mean, you got to spend a momentum for her heroic, but if she's next to terrain, you just pay free Where'd You Go.
That's going to be nice, not to mention the light-footed where she gets to move through terrain easier, so it's easy to get her next to or into terrain and then be able to bounce right out of it. And she's just going to have a lot of nice movement abilities.
Yeah, she's got a 2-8 kick, which is good to see. She's got 2-4 influence, so she can get a bunch of work done. She has smelling salts, which is great for the guild to have, just because now even the minor guilds, you can be like, yep, let's go ahead and remove those knockdowns, remove this fire. And it's, I don't know I guess Steamforge just hates alchemists because they're just tired of seeing conditions or something, because almost every group of models we see now is dealing, getting rid of conditions now. And I don't know if that's something they're going away from in season 4 or whatnot, but this is another model that can just get rid of conditions.
Well, I think they need that, because the issue with conditions, the issue with alchemists, season 3 earlier it was basically a kind of an all or nothing game, right? Like if you had the conditions on you, specifically fire and whatnot, you just couldn't do anything. You couldn't get to where you needed to be, and that was just the turn for that model. And there were guilds that didn't really have ways of removing conditions other than just spending momentum. And if you are 20 inches away from the other team, you can't do that. So I think it seems like they're going to move towards conditions have become much more prevalent in the game as a whole. So I think having more options for removing them kind of balances that.
Yeah, and that just makes me more think that alchemists are going to be in a different spot when season 4 hits, that they're not going to, they might not even look half the way they look right now. I mean, who knows? Just I think they're going to be, especially that smokeless is going to be really different when we look at them in season 4.
Well, we already know that they did say that Alchemist would be by far the most reworked guild for season 4.
Yeah.
Kind of like the engineers between season 2 and 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how this model plays out. I like that it's able to play with both minor and major guild. It's going to be able to have that combo that you see out of Honor and Harmony, except now it doesn't take a captain to be able to do it. And so I'm pretty excited for that. Also, one other thing that I thought was kind of fun is, I don't know if there's somebody at Steamforge that's like a comic book fan, but the name on this model and the fact that she's seafaring, there's a pretty well-known comic called Fathom from Image Comics, and I don't know if they were kind of tying that in. Everyone makes the Moana connection, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's somebody that's a Image Comics fan from the 90s that put something into the naming of this model. So I thought I'd give that little comment.
Now, we haven't talked about this a lot, but I kind of want your guys' thoughts on it, because there are a lot of people who don't mind this reroll mechanic, precise calculations, because, you know, it's just the minor guild thing. And there are some people who are like doom and gloom. Like, I was listening to Guild Ball tonight, and I don't know if you've listened to that yet, Mike, but
yes,
Phil was like, this is the end of the game almost with all this rerolling that's going on now.
Oh, it's going to end the whole game.
Yeah, apparently.
Wow. Oh, man, I'm really stressed.
We have to be fair to Phil. He wasn't saying that it was going to end the game. He just says that he didn't like it. Now, his reasons were interesting.
Yes, because he said there's X amount of fun you can have, and
yeah. He was trying to do some kind of math problem with fun, with fun, which we know how fun that is. I think it's a cool. I mean, shout out, listen to Guild Ball tonight for their first episode in like forever. But I think Bill had it on the nose with like, it's a cool way of interacting with the way that these models make attacks, so that like, if you look at it, remember this. I mean, all the cool stuff on this model is card. It's a Tack 4 model with a tackle on 2. It's Bonesaw with 2-inch reach.
Yep.
But the fact that you have this rule makes that kind of playbook work, and specifically makes it really cool. This model, it just, all the navigators in general will always want to charge. I mean, I guess unless they just want their first column. But yeah, they benefit so much from additional dice.
Yeah, and I think that's a good kind of observation there, Mike, because so far the two models we've seen have ways of disengaging. So it's going to be really easy, or easier, I should say, for this guild to disengage and then charge in, right? That's going to be something that they're going to be very good at doing.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
So the other comment that I want to make here is, when you look at the tack on these models, when you look at the kick, they're not incredible.
They're not good numbers, no.
You know, when you're talking about re-rolling die and you got 4 tack and, you know, you're re-rolling maybe 2 of them, 2 are successes, 2 aren't, whatever it might be, and maybe you get an extra success, that doesn't really change the whole game. The kick numbers, you know, you start with a 2 kick, for instance, and then you get to re-roll it if you miss. That's great. You get a 4 kick, but 4 kicks aren't alien in this game. So I don't really think that it's something that's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I thought it was really slick how they designed the playbooks. Like the reverse Mason playbook, I think, is a really nice touch to balance out that reroll.
How does it work with the rerolls and bonus time?
You can reroll the bonus time die.
You would reroll it.
Okay, so so let's say you choose to reroll 2 die, right? Mm-hmm. And you bonus timed it, so now you're re-rolling the 2 die of the bonus time. Can you bonus time the reroll?
No.
Okay. But you can bonus time you can reroll all of the die that were in the original bonus time. Okay, cool.
All right, and John, what's your kind of last interpretation of this whole reroll mechanic?
I like it because it just kind of, even you saw what happened this past weekend with me and dice. I like the ability to reroll dice. It makes me feel better. Like I have a better chance to get what I want.
Yeah, I would think that this reroll guild would be Chris would be all over it, but
Well, if they were a melee team, then I would be.
Well, are they a melee team?
No, they're obviously going to be the scoring team.
Get him, Mike.
I have no words.
They're going to be they don't do a bunch of damage. Their momentous results are things like dodges. They're clearly going to be a team that's scoring,
and they do that in
what? Yeah, in what range?
In melee range. No.
Yeah. Yes.
They don't because they're bouncing out. So
listen, you guys have had this talk before. We're not going to hash this out for everybody to hear.
Can I present a little scenario for not melee and ranged for Fathom here?
Sure, good.
Oh, yes.
All right, you go second. You're playing fish or navigators. I guess it doesn't really matter. You go second in turn, right? You left her in cover at the end of the previous turn. You wanted to set this up, right? So your opponent goes. You then go ahead and wave runner to make a 4-inch dodge. You then charge 8 inches with 2-inch reach. So you've now threatened 14 inches, right?
Yep.
You get a tackle or tackle double dodge if you're super lucky, whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? On the charge off the model. You then, you then acrobatic 2 inches further away. You
mean off of the playbook results?
Yeah.
No, well, then you get your playbook result, and then you acrobatic.
In addition to
Yep. Mm-hmm. Then you spend your last influence to pass the angel. She then, depending on whether you generated momentum or not, she either dodges or doesn't dodge, and then she runs 8 inches and then shoots 10 inches. So potentially 22 inches from where Angel is with a 5-die kick, and that's getting the ball off of a model that could be like, let's see, 8, 10, 12, 14 inches away from Angel. Mm-hmm. So Wave Runner can go get the ball from a model 14 inches away from Angel, 15 inches away from Angel, and then pass it to Angel, who then scores. Yep. It's beautiful.
Hide your kids, hide your wife, hide the ball.
And you can still have Shark sitting with a full stack behind her, waiting.
Yeah, well, Shark would probably have the rest of your influence at that point, because that was like 7 influence right there. But that's fine.
Yep,
sure, that'll do.
Sounds like a good time to me.
I think that adds up, right?
So, any other parting blows or thoughts about Fathom before we talk about our Captain of the Week?
I'm really excited to see what some of these good painters do with these tattoos, because those are pretty sweet little tattoos on the artwork of the card.
Yeah, I want to see how that goes too.
Yeah, because that is something that looks cool, but I mean, once again, kind of as a painter, tattoos, if you guys do want to do tattoos, just keep them bold, keep them simple, because the more intricate you try to get with it, unless you're good at doing freehand, you can start making the model look really jacked up. So I always tell people just keep tattoos simple on a model.
Yeah, these are the perfect ones because you can do bold tribal style tattoos.
Yep.
I would say just get Space Marine transfers from GW. There you go.
There you go. All right. So the reason why we had you on here, Mike, is because, one, we like you and Chris because you guys banter pretty well. Because Chris is obviously, he thinks of things the way he thinks of things. And you're very...
And then I think of things correctly. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, according to Mike Klein.
It's just kind of interesting because I clearly set the table here, and then Mike wants to just come in afterward and then pick at it. Yeah. So you're on my agenda, brother.
I mean, I would like to think that some of the things Mike talks about on anatomical precision that he gets from your reaction.
Oh,
to things.
No fucking doubt whatsoever. You do that, Mike.
I was like, wait, so are those mind traps partly because of Chris? And he's like, yeah, he shows a few of them.
All right.
So Chris just makes the topics salient in my mind. I'm like, yeah. I'm thinking about what happens when people tilt in games. Yeah. After listening to Rage Go Wire.
And honestly, I mean, that's a big part of the gaming scene, right? There are, I'd say a lot of gamers who, they get emotionally invested in their games, and when shit goes wrong, they flip their wig, and we like to show a little bit of that.
Okay, hey. You guys provide me with lots of content, just which is great.
You're welcome.
It is, and I mean,
it's sort of like we have 2 podcasts. It's awesome.
Well, three because 3, because don't forget the pitch steals from all other podcasts.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, they did have a whole episode on something Mike mentioned in the dungeon.
Yeah.
I posted on Guild Ball.
On Gubs.
On Gubs, yeah. All right, excellent. What are we here to talk
All
about?
right, so anyways, you've been playing the crap out of Rage to the point where he's the only captain. You've been bringing in all these big tournaments.
Despite talking this big game about how you're bringing butchers to the
I told y'all he
Team
was full of
Championship.
shit. Y'all are dumb.
I was like, hey, Klein's talking about bringing butchers, and John's like, he'll never fucking do it.
I told Lon that I was playing butchers, but then when I had to submit the official rosters, Jared was like, "No."
Okay, so what we want to do is we're going through the series where we're talking about every single captain. We did every single guild. That was our original goal, and now we're going to dive into each captain. For you, we want to definitely get a lot of info on, kind of that top end, maybe some cool tech elements of Rage. But we also want to remember those newer players. So, Pete, why don't you get us kicked off with an intro to Rage, kind of what captures people's imagination with him as a captain, and where to start.
The reason why I think people love Rage, and especially if you're new and getting into the game, is Rage is like Bill the Butcher from Gangs in New York. This guy just, he has his dagger, he has, his, chop, and he's just going to come in and he's murdering stuff. And he's not a lot to look at when you first look at him, especially if you're a newer player, because you're like, oh, he only brings 4 influence. He can only have 4 influence. And then once you start getting into the card, he does a lot of cool things like charging for free. He just puts out a good amount of damage. He also is great at supporting his team because he helps his team get more attack. He helps his team do more damage. And he can even buy attacks through another model with Red Fury. So he's a beater. He supports his team and he's flexible, which is why I think a lot of people like flocking to him, just because it's hard to nullify his influence. It's hard to counter him totally where he can't do anything just because of how flexible he is. And so I think that's why a lot of new players and veteran players flock to him, just because he's this cool idea when you look at him thematically, but then he also just can play like a beast, which a lot of, seasoned players love. So that's kind of my thoughts on him. And John, you've been having a lot of struggles with the Rage man. So what are some of your thoughts when you see Rage against the table or on the other side of the table?
My problem is you can't control him because he's got the quick time and because the Red Fury and because Benediction just pushes your ass everywhere wherever he wants you to be.
That's a big claim from a guy that plays the Control Guild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he's right though.
Yeah, no, he's totally right. So I think that's why I'm saying. That's why I pointed out. People need to recognize that, like, even for somebody that is a master of a Control Guild, Rage becomes uncontrollable.
Yeah, I mean, that used to be the answer. Is I think, if I can just limit Rage. Well, no, getting back when he got Benediction, I thought that was what really put him over the top. Was Benediction being able to push you back to where Rage wants you.
Yep.
And he has enough pieces around him to hold the ball that, especially getting Pride now, that it's hard to just outscore him too.
Yeah, and I mean, when I was playing against Mike in the tournament, I mean, he worked me over with it because not only Benediction, but then you had a piece like Gutter where she can drag people back into the scrum, because I was trying my damnedest to disengage out of that murder bubble. But every time I did, either Benediction pushes me in, either through his own influences or Rage's influence, and then Gutter was just hooking people back in. And I mean, it's like a well-played team like that. It's hard to disengage when you need to. You got to definitely be crafty when you're in that situation.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
Great.
So what we got from that is Mike Klein sucks. So
Accurate.
So Mike, what do you like? Let's talk to the play style here. What do you love about Rage, and like, what do you love doing with that captain in that team?
Sure. I want to go back real quick. You said he's like Bill the Butcher. He is Bill the Butcher because every one of his sculpts is just Bill the Butcher from a different point in the movie, which is awesome.
I really
so
love
good.
that movie with that like weird flute song they got going. It's so awesome.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, so you guys definitely touched on a lot of the basic parts of Rage. I like that he's a model that is highly resistant to control because he can spend his influence very flexibly. He always does more damage than you expect. I mean, once you're familiar, you expect him to do a lot of damage, but like he always gets that damage in. And you basically, you need to either be nowhere near him or you need to end his team, or you need to threaten to kill him. Otherwise, he will win the fight. There's no like, I'm going to put a model, engaging him and that will limit what he can do. Well, you better not be anywhere near any of the other players on this team. Because if you're anywhere near them, they'll just push you out. He'll charge you or, push you in. He'll attack you, knock you down, push you out, charge you. You could do a million different things. But yeah, he does just him and Gutter and Benediction as like a kind of a core setup and damage do so much damage that it kind of allows you to fill out the rest of the team with all the cool union models to either do more damage, control, or score goals. So,
okay, so let's kind of take this a little bit next level, and I want to approach this from two angles. The first is,
sure,
what do you do as far as high level, as far as how you use those individual pieces, or when you decide to take what extra pieces. So let's talk about that a little bit, and then the next part, and I think we'll kind of close on this element, is what do people have to do to combat rage? So like when somebody's a player that maybe they've got that one rage player in their meta and that player is making everyone's life hell, what advice do you have for those players as far as the defensive tech, so to speak? So we'll start with, how do you use those models? Why is Benediction Gutter a key triad with him? And then how do you decide which other models to include in the pack?
Sure. Understanding Rage's damage and all his great stuff comes from his heroic / legendary play, which basically gives you assist. And assist is a very powerful ability. And so basically the whole point of a Rage Union team is you want to stack gang ups between, you want to get models so where they're engaging your models and they're kind of trapped on your models, and then they get thrown into range of either Rage or Gutter or, whatever other model, and then they will die regardless of really how much health they have or what their stats are.
Yeah, and can I interject?
Yeah, go for it.
Example from our game, Mike? So you had an example of this is when you had Spigot pinned between Benediction and Gutter, and it was to the point where I had to stand him up because you knocked him down, and I was engaged by both models, and there was no way, you have decent enough knockdowns where if I gave you a parting blow, you're probably knocking down Spigot again, and you just did a great job where it's like, you saw me sitting there probably struggling for 5 minutes on my clock, man, where am I going to put this dude? It's like literally he's dead, and I'm just activating him to not waste the activation. Is pretty much the way it felt on my end of the table, because you did such a good job of pinning him down between multiple models.
With 2-inch reach.
Yeah.
Yeah. He definitely likes models with 2-inch reach, models that have knockdowns. Union don't have he actually has the best knockdown not in the guild, but in the lineups that you're taking with him. But you want models that can knock models down and definitely can knock them down on parting blows, which is important. But you want models that also can push, and then you also, Gutter, we'll talk about, but you do lots of damage. But yeah, I guess what you really want to what I really say to a vet Rage team is about positioning your models for the next activation or the next turn. So it's a lot of getting your models in the right position so that you threaten to do things to, models with further activations or in further turns. So it's not just about throwing your beater captain in there and killing people, because people, I've had people just throw Rage, dodge Rage up, and then he charges in. He does moderate amounts of damage, but Where it really gets insane is when you're kind of making the scrum, making the whole kind of machine work.
So let's talk a little bit about that, and I want to go more in depth. Yeah. One of the things that we talked about on our last podcast about Tapper is Pete gave an awesome piece of tech where he said, you don't really want to charge Tapper. You want to jog him up if possible, and that way he's not getting out of reach of his support team. So Rage, obviously, you want to be able to basically put on assist with the heroic play or the legendary play. But you're in kind of this weird place because
he wants a free charge.
He wants a free charge, and you want other models engaging, but then once he goes, they might not be engaging, or, you're scrumming up, so then you don't get the charge anymore. So what are the ways that you kind of manage how you use his activation in relation to the others and his legendary and heroic plays? Like, what are some of your thoughts on how you pull those levers?
Sure. I mean, one of the things is he has so many options, so there's so many different ways to do it. But yeah, he is not a model that wants to be leading the charge. He wants to be positioning, so he's basically, he just stands right behind Benediction a lot of the times. Or close to, and you basically want to do kind of set up this thing where you're going to go in with your models, mainly Benediction, but other ones as well, and generate some momentum and get in there and kind of get stuck in. And then that will be the setup in which, you kind of use those models to get the models in range to set up either, a Rage, really great activation or a gutter activation, etc. So a lot of times, what I'll do is an early activation might be, if I have positioned myself well the previous turn, so my models are, in threat range and I can be more aggressive. Because remember, even though you don't have the most, Union is not the most tanky team by nature. You have Benediction who's moderately tanky, and your whole point is like, if they don't, as long as you have two models that are there, you will win, or you will do a lot of damage in the fight. So, you can kind of afford to position aggressively and kind of bully people, out of space. So assuming that I've set up well the previous turn, a great first activation might be, and there's actually even better activations if you can manage to, but like a great first activation, if there are no models engaging, is Benediction gets 4, he charges in, probably has to charge. He does at least a push or something like that, depending on what the enemy is. He makes another attack, maybe does another 2-inch push, and then either puts up braced or puts up, stand firm or whatever. And now you've generated some momentum. You have a tanky model, it's stuck in there. They have to do something with the model that he's attacked. Ideally, he would be engaging 2 models, and then from there, you're kind of like, it's kind of a, you're forking the person. They have to activate one model, but it's kind of hard to deal with Benediction and free up all your models. So you're setting yourself up for the next activation.
Okay, and then typically that will be Rage. Then he's putting up a heroic play or a legendary play, and then from there you pile in the rest of them.
Yeah, and
potentially. There's also, there's like, the thing is that it's so flexible. There's other things you can do. You can do that kind of thing. So Benediction goes in, then let's say Rage is going to go in, and let's say you don't want a legendary because you don't think you'll get enough value out of it. You've generated some momentum, so you put up Bloody Coin. You could put up Bloody Coin on yourself if you really need to just go and kill a model right now, or you can, if maybe Rage won't, for whatever reason, Rage won't be able to one round that model if he Bloody Coins himself. What he could do is, on turn, this may be a little bit further down the road, but let's say, you start a turn off and Gutter and Benediction are engaged with some models. You can generate a momentum with Rage, maybe charge in with Rage or make an attack with Rage, then put up Bloody Coin on Gutter, then start Red Fury and Gutter. And this is where it becomes ridiculous. You've now got the benefit not only of Rage's activation, getting a model to make attacks at plus 1 attack, plus 1 damage. You still have Gutter still has her own activation. So you can have 7, 8 attacks at plus 1 attack and plus 1 damage with a model that has, anatomical precision and, good momentous damage. So it's really, there's a lot of flexibility in it, but you want to be setting up those situations where you can just go crazy on the damage.
Yeah, and then it's like it's weird playing against it because you finally okay, I finally got this model away from Rage's scrum. I'm free. I can go do other things. And then Gutter activates and drags somebody back into the scrum, and they're dead.
Yeah. I was going to say, and one thing to not, and this is like a little bit of yes, you want efficiency, and obviously like you set yourself up to try to have the most efficient activations, but always be way out, like really, if you have the ability to spend some of your influence in kind of doing that setup or control. What I mean by that is like one thing that I've done a lot against players that it's not something that always works, but let's say you sprint up Benediction 6 inches turn 1, right? I have had, or another model, I have had times where, let's say I have the ball, Rage's activation turn 1 might be quick time one of the models 2 inches forward and pass it so it gets another dodge 2 inches forward. Dodge 4 inches forward, and now it's in melee with the model for the bottom of the turn. So then top of turn, and then Rage walks, within threat range of the model. So turn 2, you now have a model that's engaged by Benediction or by Gutter, and Rage is sitting there ready to charge. So like balance between like getting your optimal, Rage gets to go spend 4 influence and a charge killing people with like setting up those situations. For future activations and future turns.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
So looking at, since you've been getting so many games with a Mike, what are some counters or what are some drops that you've experienced where you've been like, okay, I'm having kind of a tough time with this model or this play style, or just what are some challenges or some counters that have been effective against Rage when you've played them?
Sure. I could talk about a couple of guilds that are a little bit more challenging for Rage, and then maybe I can try to see if there's like a good overall play style thing. So definitely probably the hardest matchup for Rage, I think it's definitely still doable, is Sharkfish, mainly because you will basically get to kill the models that he sends in after the ball / after, the goal. And it's your job to, you have to play, the game becomes like super, basically you ball up and protect the ball, and you use, distance and dodges and whatnot to make it so that the Shark player has to, in their 3 or 4 attempts on the ball, they fail 1 to 2 of them. So like, they're scoring maybe 8 points. And you have to be ready to also score, because you're not going to get enough takeouts. They're going to give you the models that come in, but they're not going to give you any other models. And they're fast enough and slippery enough to get out of melee, with models like Grayscales and just, any of them with momentous dodges on one. So that can be a challenging matchup for Rage if you're not really, really, really good at killing the ball.
Okay, so another... Would a Pinvice Engineers also be kind of a tough matchup for Rage then?
I guess theoretically they're not as fast, which kind of is one of the big things. They are tankier, but I don't think Rage cares about that as much. I haven't had a lot of people. I know some people. I've heard some people swearing by Pinvice into Rage. I'm not super convinced.
Okay,
but I think it's something worth. Here's what I'll say. Don't play Ballista into Vet Rage. I know. Jared did, and he did well, but like that was all like us counting on him to skill it through. But like Ballista into Vet Rage is a bad matchup. I don't care. Like I played both sides of it a lot, especially on the engineer side, and it is a bad matchup. Yes, you can still win, but it's. Just don't do it.
I would say because you're making the man angry, giving 2 momentum points. He might have stand firm on him because of Benediction, and it's just, it seems like a lot of not great stuff with that.
Yeah.
How do you think Union fares against the new boogeyman there, the Brewers and Decimate?
Well, I thought it was going to be an issue because Vet Decimate is definitely a model that Rage does not like to see, because it is a model that basically models that threaten to kill Vet Rage in 1 activation or 1 activation with minimal, like with some setup, are models that that have high threat ranges, or models that Vet Rage does not want to see, because he wants to be able to position kind of bully aggressively, right? So Decimate definitely presents a big challenge. I wouldn't say the Brewers in general as much as it is really just all the buffs on.
Yeah, I feel like you did a good job of suckering my Decimate to kind of get in a not great position for the fight. And I mean, you did a good job of mitigating her, which I tell people, it's like you need to have a plan when you go into her. Otherwise, I mean, you might not want to play the game for a little bit.
Yeah, well, this is, I mean, it could be kind of an aside, but like, yeah, this kind of goes to, I did the same kind of thing in preparation for SteamCon US when it was Thresher that was out, is having a strategy. So while I said it's not like natively, it is a challenge. I think it is a challenging matchup for Vet Rage. However, at least on the receiving side, I think the strategy that I came up with in preparation for, I figured I was going to be dropped into a lot of Brewers players, or was hoping to get into a lot of Brewers players. So I knew I needed to have an answer. And I think actually that answer, which without going into too many details, basically involves Second Wind and Harry, was actually, I mean, yeah, I felt pretty good. I mean, we played our game and I won that game. I also played another good Brewers player and might have crushed his soul.
So souls will be crushed when you play Mike Klein.
Now we have to go look at Longshanks to find out who that is.
Crusher of Dreams.
It was our good friend Alan Bradley, George.
Well, I did ask Alan. I was like, hey, Alan, how'd your game with Mike go? And he's like, I don't want to talk about it. I was like, fair enough. Been there, brother.
Well, let's just put it this way. Vet Decimate spent one turn running towards Harry and not doing anything. Spent another turn attacking Harry and not really doing anything because wouldn't have killed him in one activation, so didn't want to trigger Rising Anger. Then ran somewhere else and did not too much, and then died.
So I mean, at least my Decimate at least pushed Harry off the pitch. I mean, I guess I got something out of that.
You really frustrated me because the whole point of that is you're supposed to give me the 4 momentum in exchange for the takeout. But because of that giant rough ground that we had in our game, I had to put Harry too close to the edge of the pitch. So I still got the 2 activations out of you.
You did.
But I didn't get the momentum, so I was pretty angry.
Well, good. At least, if nothing else, I got 6 points and made Mike angry.
So, what are your thoughts on someone? And again, I'm trying to remember players that are in individual metas and aren't necessarily at the highest level. But what do you think about the idea of somebody trying to take a good number of 2-inch reach models and tying up Rage in such a way where you're mitigating that charge because he's engaged and using up some of his influence because he's having to dodge out or dodge someone else out or buy a Red Fury to knock someone down, that sort of thing instead. Do you think that's a viable way of somebody being able to deal with Rage? Not necessarily you playing it, but in general with the way that
with a bunch of 2-inch reach.
Yeah, with a bunch of 2-inch reach and just kind of trying to tie up that.
So the farmers.
Sure, that would be an interesting example.
Well, so actually, we didn't speak to it, but I think the farmers are actually also a challenging matchup for Vet Rage. I don't think it is less the 2-inch reach for farmers as much as it is things like either Fallow, which can be pretty painful, or just Thresher still kills Rage. But so the short answer to your thing is yes and no, but it's more that I think that is very dependent on the skill level of the Rage player, because I cannot imagine a scenario where the Rage player is playing, optimally or even close to optimally, where you are engaging him with 2-inch reach models, but he doesn't have his 2-inch reach models or even 1-inch reach models, doesn't matter, engaging you as well, in which case, like ones that push, so specifically Benediction or Gutter or Harry, I guess, because then he's just going to spend 1 to Red Fury to push you out of melee with him, generate a momentum, so then he could then heroic and then charge you and then kill you. So I guess maybe if you got him with multiple 2-inch reach models and he also couldn't push you out, it's a challenge. It is a good idea, but I think one that's challenging to put into practice. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think what you're saying, Mike, is unless the Rage player is out of position, it's difficult to hold him down even with 2-inch reach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's less. Yeah, because you're probably engaging his models at that point, in which case he doesn't even need to charge. He could just spend which is great, like for you if he doesn't charge, but still spending 4 influence on a bloody coin gutter, that is attacking your models it could still be pretty painful.
Yeah, and he's definitely different from, like, you shouldn't play him like Tapper. Like, Tapper wants to be in the front, kind of knocking down and doing damage and setting his team up, whereas Rage is kind of letting the boys and girls kind of set it up, and then he's kind of almost like orchestrating the whole thing, where he's deciding, where the final blow is going to come from. Is kind of the way I look at him.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I guess what I would say is, like, ways to play into Vet Rage are find ways to try to threaten to kill him, right? Which is a hard thing to do. This obviously depends on your team, but like find the most he is a pretty standard statted model, and he actually doesn't have a particularly good counterattack. His defenses are basically the fact that Rising Anger is, it is annoying to give him 2 influence, and then if you don't kill him, you are very, very dead. And he has good defensive stats, not the strongest, but he has good ones. But if you can threaten to kill him, even if you have to potentially sacrifice a model to do so, but like if you kind of put a model in there that puts a debuff on him and maybe another model, right? And then like, yeah, he's going to kill your model, but now he's kind of stuck because he is in threat range of your other model, which might be able to, start doing damage or threatening him. The other thing is to
maybe like Ferrite, somebody like that debuffs him.
That would be a good
disarm.
Yeah.
This arm is not bad, although Red Fury does get around that, but it does make him spend his influence perhaps suboptimally. But I mean, if you want to go blacksmith, a good example would be like charge Vet Cinder in top of the turn, get some damage on him, get Searing Strike on him, and then she's gonna die. But if you have a fully loaded iron behind that, especially one that might get, instructed or something like that. Yeah. So Vet Rage is going to kill her. But if you trade your player for Vet Rage, that's a huge deal. Yeah. Because once Vet Rage can no longer kind of bully the table and kind of just do what he wants and kill any model that threatens him. And once he has to start worrying and kind of hiding himself, then that's kind of when you can turn the advantage. The other option, if you don't really have a good option to kill him, is to definitely to try to play as spread out as you can, and kind of, again, throw models in for a specific so you're going to send a model in knowing that it's going to die, but it has to accomplish something specific, whether that's getting the ball back to your model so you can try to score, killing one of his less tanky models, because remember the Union are pretty averagely statted in terms of survivability, other than, they don't have bad stats by any means, but they're, pretty typically 4-1, 14 box
yeah, that's
models.
Pretty normal. Yep.
John, you've been pretty quiet over there. What are some questions or thoughts you have or want to bring up to Mike here?
He's just sitting there angry.
He is.
I'm not angry.
I can feel it from here.
The seething.
We've already discussed how I know the bad matchups that, because as a committed hunter players I've been, I know how the bad matchups are, and now there's really nothing to do about it. I mean, when we played at Spring Fling, I kind of did what I thought was the best chance I had against it, and it still didn't quite work. That's, if you don't have the ability to take out Rage, or you don't have the Shark, still ball pressure was my answer, and it's just tough.
So let me ask you this, John. Do you feel like the Falconers are going to help you in this matchup quite a bit?
You mean as playing Hunters, getting the Falconers, getting Minerva?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Harrier AoE threatening Rage is always. You get, because then you can come in with, if you like playing the Bear, Rage can't counter the Bear, and the Bear doing extra damage, or Jakar doing extra damage, or even the little bits from distance, like Egret hitting, popping off 3 damage on a flurry, or Theron hitting 3 damage on snipes, really wears him down a lot quicker. Because that's the biggest thing with me playing. You can't outfight them, because Rage puts 1-round models, put out 16, 17, 20 damage on some models, and I feel like I was always putting out 9, 10 damage and then dying.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, I think, a really good idea when you're playing against Union, is you want to be very careful what models you give them, because, for example, like, instead of just killing Spigot, Mike did a great job of using Spigot or using Esters to then do more damage with Scything Blow, or then use them to drag the next model in that he wanted to kill. So I think if you give them a difficult model to farm off of, that can help you out when you're playing against them.
I will say that Minerva definitely makes hunters a lot more viable into Vet Rage, because I Spy, I mean, the combination of Knockdown, Harrier, and I Spy, it's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Also, I mean, put that on Benediction, and he actually becomes killable.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So just in the interest of being thorough, when you're talking about the other models that you take, I know we didn't really hit on this. What's your thought process as far as when you want to bring what other models? You're bringing the base 3. You only bring the one mascot, right?
Yeah, he likes the snake.
So what the other 2 models, you base that on what? When you need what, you bring who?
The other one model, do you mean? Because we have Benediction, Gutter. Oh, wait, I missed one. Benediction, Gutter. Oh, I usually have Mist, but I have switched that up a little bit.
Okay, so you usually take
occasionally.
Mist because you want some scoring ability. Is that the reason? Is that...
Yeah, you want to be able
Okay.
to. I mean, yeah, you want to be able to counter score.
Okay.
You also want to be able to score. I mean, Rage can go 2-2, and actually often do go 2-2 because
it's stupid easy for him to get 2 kills.
Yeah.
Well, it's really easy for him to get 2 kills, and Mist, especially with Benediction, is a ridiculous striker.
Yep.
So if you either you recede or even kicking, like you might as well throw that model after a goal. Probably dies at least once, but you're gonna start winning the fight because you're playing Vet Rage. If you're doing well. And almost all my opponents, when they're down, obviously the next go-to is I'm going to start scoring, which is the right play. But if you have Mist there, it makes it so much harder, because as soon as they, okay, go ahead, score. Now Mist will get his second goal, and now
get the snap back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you usually take Mist. So what's the flex one then is the 4th squatty. So what are your thought processes on the 4th squatty? You take who win?
Yeah, it's so my current lineup, that would be a choice between Minx, Hemlock, Decimate, Harry, although Harry usually goes in with Decimate as well, and Mist gets taken out. But it's really what you need. So like Hemlock, if you need potentially either the condition clearing, if you need a ranged character play that does damage, which actually can be a big thing some of the time, just to force people to not be able to just stay far away from you. Because if you just keep throwing Noxious Blasts out, and a big example I'm thinking of is Mason's often pretty good into Masons because they have no character plays. So if they're going to sit there and be like, come into my countercharge bubble, and you say, no, I will just throw Noxious Blasts at you until you come to me, that could be pretty effective.
Okay.
Minx is great just because, she's just all around efficient and kind of helps set up other models. She's kind of hard, she's good into like a fish where you need a slightly faster model that's kind of independent, does a little bit of work on her own, but doesn't need, and can set up models, but also could be super far away from everything else.
So can
chasing
we
a model.
Take a second here, and John, do you want to pour one out for your homie here and say goodbye to Minx?
Man.
You got your last tournament with her.
It's over.
Hey, she scored some goals. I got Alan Bradley in the first round, and she scored 2 goals on him just because that ridiculous threat, especially with cards. This, I forgot about midfield general. If you ever get around Alan, he'll tell you the story. And her with midfield general and all the dodges, man, I love her.
I think hunters are going to miss her a lot because, like you said, Mike, she can put some work in.
Yeah, but do you know who also scores goals pretty well?
Who's that?
Vet Minx.
Get the fuck out of here.
John didn't even have her in his 10.
Nope.
I know. That
Yeah,
was
but will she
blasphemy.
make the 12 in season 4? That's the real question.
Yeah.
Yeah, she will because I won't have Ominx.
Yeah. I don't know
So
where we're at.
you like that Minx is just generally efficient.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Mhm.
the last one you mentioned was
Decimate.
Harry Decimate combo. So what are your thoughts on when you take that?
I mean, Decimate is just a solid all-around model. If Second Wind is going to be useful, she's really good. If you need like kind of a backup striker, she's pretty good at that. Obviously, she's good into armor. She's super consistent on damage. She doesn't spike as high as like a model like Gutter and doesn't have like a top end. But like if you need to do, 8 damage anywhere on the board with 4 influence, she'll probably do 8 damage. And then the Harry, what I specifically used with Harry and Decimate was for the Second Wind Goad combo, specifically to deal with Vet Decimate. But similarly, it could be used for Hammer or other, low defense super solo models.
Okay, very cool. All right, one last thing that I thought of is, and I think we should start incorporating this into these breakdowns in general, is oftentimes most captains have a rule of thumb as far as which side of the pitch they want to play on, yours or your opponent's. For instance, when you play those Grange farmers, you don't want to play on your opponent's side of the pitch. You always want to stay on yours.
Okay.
And so, or generally speaking, right? Like, how much pressure do you play with? Do you find that you overextend yourself if you go and play on your opponent's side of the pitch, and you're just doing that when it's going to end the game, or do you find that you're playing too conservatively if you're staying on your side of the pitch? Does this question make sense?
Yeah, basically, what's your overall pitch positioning you like to play with? Rich.
Yeah, and I think this is important for maybe players that aren't as experienced with a certain captain, and we should start kind of including this in our breakdowns. So
Sure.
Give it to us, Mike. Tell us what we need to know.
I mean, I'm going to give you a sad "it depends" answer.
Okay. So then the follow up is going to be, what does it depend on? But go ahead. Give us some schooling.
I mean, you want to be with the rest of your team, regardless of where exactly on the pitch that is. It's going to vary based on, like, obviously into Shark, you're not going to be up by their side as much as you would like to. But if you start going up into the, their side of the pitch, they're just going to give you a model to kill, and they're all going to run out to the wings around you, and then they're going to end up by your goal and start scoring. So you're going to probably end up more likely on, your side of the pitch, maybe off towards the side, trying to hold the ball while they come at you, and then you start killing models. On the other hand, if you're playing against hunters, you're going to end up, as far down their side of the pitch as possible, because they're going to run away from you as much as possible, and you need to kind of position aggressively and kind of control the center of the board and strike out from there. So, you definitely don't want to overextend with Vet Rage or with Union. So you want to be cohesive. At least the majority of your models, some are different. Mist, maybe Decimate can go out on the wing, but generally you want to be with your team.
Okay. So what I'm taking away from this is to be cohesive with your team. Generally speaking, you're going to be playing toward the center of that board, maybe a little bit up, maybe a little bit back, but that's generally where you're going to be. And of course, you have players that are wing players or whatever that are shooting in for goals or whatever it might be. But generally speaking, you want to scrum up. That means you're going to be playing kind of toward the center of the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I think the majority of my Vet Rage games take place within 4 inches of the center line, probably 4 to 6 inches of the center line.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, so kind of looking at that, I think that pretty much covers everything we wanted generally about Rage. One thing I will ask you, though, Mike, is if you're anything like me, I tend to get bored with a guild after a while. So is there any guild kind of down the road that you're looking at where you're like, man, I really want to play that kind of moving forward?
I mean, always.
So what would that be?
I mean, I definitely will be playing Masons with Vet Chisel. I actually want to play Hunters a bit more once the Minerva and the Falconers are out. Blacksmiths also with Vet Cinder. I mean, I'm pretty excited for all the guilds. I've been after WTC because Frank is definitely playing Fish. I do want to go back and play Fish. I played them a bunch in season 2, and I'd be nice to play a team that's especially if you play Shark, that's completely different, where you're spreading the field and going in on insane goal runs as opposed to killing everybody in a giant ball.
Cool. Well, let's go around the room. John, what are you excited to play moving forward?
After I dabbled today, I'm really getting excited about Falconers.
Yeah. And did you play just the 6 today or what?
Just the 6, just because they're all new, and I was, I'm still proxy and just kind of threw some hunter models out there and said, oh, these are the Falconers, and goofed around and I had fun with them.
How much damage did Devana do in an activation?
A stupid amount. Especially since I was dedicated to getting all 3 Harrier markers on one person and dodging the bird. And I had to make it happen, and I did, and it was a lot.
And that's when you jizzed in your pants.
Yeah, and then you throw down the old kick them when they're down game plan card, and she's just murders
strong
from a long ways away.
What about you, Chris? What are you looking forward to playing?
Everybody knows. I mean,
the cooks now?
Oh, yeah. Well, I will get those Falconers. I'm excited for those Falconers. I think they're cool models. But the cooks, I mean, that's where I belong.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah.
You're going to hate them. Calling it right now, you're going to hate them.
I really hope I don't.
I can't wait to listen to that.
Watch, I get these things. I play 5 games with them or whatever, and
throws them in the trash.
This is bullshit. I pull. Who was the guy that sold his rat catchers?
Oh, it was the guy at Spring Fling. It was what was his name?
Burns.
Burns.
Neil Burns.
2 seconds. Like, swear to God, it was like the second round. He's like, I'm putting this crap on eBay. I'm done with this.
This is bullshit. If that happens, I will be so fucking bummed out.
To be fair, I was sitting next to him in round 3, I think, and he was playing against Alex Bots, and Alex lost the round before. I think Alex was a little steamed because he lost, and Alex just 12-0'd him, like the hardest I've ever seen anybody 12-0'd.
He just took it all out on that poor guy. Oh, man.
And then I'm definitely looking forward to Blacksmiths. I played him today. I'm probably going to proxy Vet Cinder next time I play, and I'm really excited about that.
Okay.
Oh, man, I was going to ask you how much damage Vet Cinder did in the game.
I'm going to find out probably Thursday.
So in the one game I got to play with her so far, she did 48 damage over the course of the game, right?
That's sexy.
Do you want to guess how many activations that she actually took?
2.
Yes.
Yes.
That was 48 damage over 2 activations. It was beautiful.
So good.
She, so activation number 1, Hearth had instructed her and then knocked down 2 models.
Nice.
She then charges them, kills both of them. And later on in the game kills another model and ends up shooting the goal instead of getting the takeout on the other one because it ended the game, but could have. If her Grim Vengeance could trigger twice, she could have scored both the 2 takeouts and a goal. Nice. But it cannot. But she was amazing.
Yeah. That model is, I'm very excited to try that model because
especially to paint that awesome head.
Yeah, I mean, cut that head off, but.
Go Gollum!
Put a top hat. Put a top hat on
Put
it.
a bag on its head or something. It's bad. That's a bad face. Like, I'm hoping that's just the render. Hopefully, when I look at the model, it'll make me happier.
You know what would be awesome? Because, like, in the fluff, she gets burned, right?
Yeah.
It would be awesome if you did something with, like, just a small piece of, like, green stuff and put it over her face like it was, like
a scar?
Some sort of a sick mask, like a leather face type mask, and then the head was just, like, all burned and, like, you could actually do some cool shit with that model.
Probably. So, I think I talked to Jamie Perkins about this, and
name dropper.
I don't know if you know this, but Jamie
kind of
Perkins and I we talked.
Is that the guy who lost the World Cup?
Yes. I just remember.
Oh man, you know what, Mike? You are brave if you're gonna like take a quick shot at Jamie Perkins.
I
you are a brave man.
No, I was actually asking him if I could use his game for something that I want to do down the road, Go Ball content wise, and I was making fun of him for losing that game. I was like, this is going to be a really great opportunity for everybody to see how you effed up and lost into this game.
Well, and that's Jamie, like, talking to him. He's like, this is one of the best times probably to be a Guild Ball player because there's so much cool stuff coming out. We got a new season coming out, new guilds, and it's a really cool time to be part of the game.
I agree with that.
So,
Yep.
So Mike, we're going to give you kind of a minute here. If there's anything else you want to just bring up, mention, BS, call us out on, it's up to you. It's your world.
I mean, this is clearly, your at least your first or second best podcast that you guys have had. So I really don't have any major complaints.
I think it's our second best.
Yeah, that's true. Your original Masons episode was probably the best.
Besides our Farmers one, that's one of our most listened to podcasts.
The Farmers one is far and away the most watched one that we did. That one that I just raged out the entire time.
Turns out when you bitch about something, people tend to listen.
Yeah,
I
I guess, right? And then they errata exactly what you say needs to be errated. But no, thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, of course.
You know how we sign off. Do you want to sign us off?
Oh, what is it? I listen to your podcast, but I'm usually so ignoring it by that. Is it
Fuck dice.
Okay, go ahead. Something else. Roll something.
Fuck dice and limit your salt intake.
There you go.
Even our co-host can't get it.
Yes,
do precision dice research and complain on the internet.
I think that's a good one.
All right, well, we're out of here. All do it right. Roll dice, throw salt. We're out, boys and girls.